episode 70 of the podcast. This week we're taking a trip into Crazyland. We're going to talk about what we would try if we wanted to teach a dog to be aggressive for grooming and vet visits. What would we do if we wanted dogs to struggle and wiggle against us? What might we try if we wanted dogs to dislike being touched? Because this will give you a really good aha moment for why some of the methods that we so commonly do don't work for us. In the second part, we're going to be talking about tunnel vision and how sometimes we're focused on what we're doing and not seeing the entirety of the behavior. So find out more this week. You're listening to the Creating Great Grooming Dogs podcast. I'm Chrissy Newmeyer-Smith. I'm a certified professional groomer, a certified behavior consultant for canines, a certified professional dog trainer, and the owner of Happy Critters in Nashua, New Hampshire. And this, my friends and colleagues, is the podcast where grooming and training meet. I want to share this week something that has helped a lot of my dog owners have their aha moment. In fact, it helped somebody this week. So we're going to pretend for a minute, and this is going to sound crazy. We're taking a trip into Crazyland, but we are going to pretend for a moment that we're trying to teach dogs to dislike grooming. Pause on that for a minute, because that's a really weird thought. Like, whoa, what purpose does this activity solve? Well, we want to be able to think about what we would do if we were trying to teach the opposite action from what we want. So what would we try if we wanted to teach a dog to be aggressive for grooming and vet visits? Never really gave it any thought, huh? Thank God. Yeah, please don't anybody do this. What would we do if we wanted dogs to struggle and wiggle against us? It's a weird thought. What would we do? What might we try if we wanted dogs to dislike being touched? Interesting. And the reason why this is an eye-opener for many of my customers is because now what we're going to do is we're going to kind of discuss the things that we accidentally do that encourage the very behaviors we don't want. So here is an example from this week. I think I told you guys a couple weeks back about some Maltese puppies I'm working with. And Mom's been having some trouble getting around those little tiny eyes. Now, she's been doing the touching all over, touching with objects, touching with stuff from the table. These dogs, I think there was one tangle on these two puppies. That's amazing, right? She's brushing them, she's combing them, she's everywhere on them. Just has trouble around the eyes. So I asked her, okay, well, what are you doing? She says, well, we do this and we do this, but especially Sula, she'll just try to grab at me. Sula's the female puppy. Jack's the other one. Anyway, so I asked her, well, show me. So while I'm getting my grooming stuff set up, because this was their grooming appointment this time, not a training appointment, she had them up in her arms, and I'm like, oh, actually, while you have them up in your arms, I'm just going to kind of come over with a comb. Why not just little pieces? We're going to do a little bit. And I walked over with a little comb in my finger, and Sula let out a little bit of a ah, and her mom was right there going, no, and clamping down on her head. I'm like, oh, well, that's your problem right there. She's like, well, I can't let her get away with that. How many of us have been in that situation where we thought, well, I can't let her get away from that. We clamp down harder, and then we start, no, right? So here's a puppy who is still kind of learning about being handled. And I want you to think about that growly noise that was being made and clamping down harder. If we wanted to teach her to dislike people reaching for her eyes, what might we do? We might make a lot of kind of aggressive growling noises and clamp down on her harder, right? Like that increases bad behavior or increases the behavior that we're not looking for. It increases the behavior of, I'm not letting you near my eyes. And not just in this particular dog, in this particular instance, this is what I have found pretty regularly is that dogs that are being handled that way are like, oh, here comes the approach. I'm going to start you. I'm going to stop you right there, lady. Sir, you may not touch my eyes. Sir, you may not touch my feet. Listen, lady, you are not going to touch my tail. They're already on the defensive. They're already waiting for it. So let me give you another example of times when we're trying to teach a dog a little bit of wrestling, a little bit of, I don't want to say aggression because that's not quite the right word. So in flyball, that's a dog sport that I do with my own guys. One of the ways that we get our dogs revved up to charge away from us toward over the jumps into the flyball box, the way we get them revved up for that is we hold them back and we clamp down a little harder and make lots of growly sounds. Right? There is nothing calming about that. That gets a dog active. It activates them. We can call it prey drive, whatever we want to call it. There are lots of different terms. But I'll tell you what, if I had my dogs in a sit-stay and said, jump and get your ball, or something like that, it would be an entirely different dynamic than holding them back and doing the ready, ready, ready. Do you want that ball? Do you want it? Which my dogs love. There's nothing calming about that. And as soon as that pressure is released, they're off like a rocket. And it is becoming more and more over time. So initially, I'll tell you, my guys were sort of like, oh, we're doing the fun thing. And then they started realizing it's a race. So the more we do it, the more that pent-up energy starts to happen, which is exactly the opposite of what we want in a grooming setting or a veterinary setting. So by clamping down harder and making some growly noises, right, we're actually wrestling. And if we don't want to wrestle, then we shouldn't wrestle. So if we're off in crazy land and trying to teach dogs to fight us and push away from us and try to avoid us and try to run away from us or try to growl at us or grab at us, then we want to avoid the things that are playing like that. That's not going to help a dog be calm. Now, I will tell you that it's so normal for us to try that because what we think we're doing is we think that we are telling this dog, I'm not putting up with it, right? It's probably the dog who started it first. Is that a good reason? It's not a good reason for us to follow up the same way. We set the tone. We're able to listen to the podcast and read books and talk to each other and find out more about behavior, right? We set the tone for what's happening. So this little dog, while she's in her mom's arms, I'm like, oh, hey, relax again. Relax again. Okay, near your eye with the finger. There you go. All right, near your eye with the finger and maybe just with the scissor near. Yeah, good. And then I walked away because I didn't have to get it done yet. I have a 3-hour appointment to groom these 2 pups. So we just kept circling back to it. And I'll tell you what, I got her eyes cleaned out. I didn't try it with clippers because they're puppies and they're still learning this whole process. So I'm doing an easier version, the puppy version of the grooming process. We did it with scissors, combs, brushes, and fingers, but I was able to get it. And by the end of our grooming, she had had a number of repetitions that did not result in growling, grabbing, clamping down, right? They were all calm, cool, collected, right? With a dog that is calm, comfortable, and cooperative. We just calmed everything down. When we want calm, we should be calm. Like that, we have to take a leadership role with the dogs. We have to set the tone and set the mood. And by calming on down and not taking it personally, if she can't handle it. Now, here's another aspect to that, is that she is a puppy who's still learning. So she has to learn to be comfortable with it. And she's starting off uncomfortable. So some of what we'll talk about in the next part are ways to help a dog be comfortable. Because, we talk a lot about that. But also, I think we get tunnel vision. And we start thinking that we have to get it done right now. And if the thing that we're having a problem with, the dog is having a problem with also. And I'm going to try to convince you that that's not quite true. If you're enjoying this podcast, please remember to subscribe so that you don't miss any episodes, and tell all of your friends. Tunnel vision is when we start thinking, I have to get this piece done. So we're having a problem or having some trouble or having an issue with getting XYZ done. Whatever it is. Let's use an example of getting around a tail done. The dog doesn't want you handling their tail. So because that's the part that we're having an issue with, our goal is to get the tail done, and we're having a problem with it. So we instantly start thinking the dog has a problem with getting their tail done. And I know right now there's probably somebody listening going, duh, yeah, Chrissy, that's actually the problem. But I want you to look at the bigger picture. What is it about that area, and what other things does this dog need to do for us to get that tail done? Because there are lots of things that could be going on with getting the tail done. For instance, I can think of a couple little Yorkies that I know that have those really, really, really tiny, tiny, stubby little tails. And I honestly think that some of those really, really tiny, short, docked tails just have they aren't used to being moved around an awful lot. And those muscles, I think sometimes when we go to pull up on a tail, it hurts. You have to be really, really gentle. Relax their tail a little bit before you pull it up, before you try to get into their bum. And if they're at home and someone's been trying to wipe their bum and isn't aware of that, then they just yank it up. Now we have a dog who's like, oh, what's that? And also, for some of our dogs, when we're working on a tail, we're kind of brushing and it's moving their whole body around. So if they have some hip issues or some knee issues or some back end in general issues, we're moving their tail around and it's moving their whole back end. And sometimes we're putting a little bit of strain and a little bit of pressure. It can be very uncomfortable. I have found over the years that if you back away from your tunnel vision view of, oh, it's so hard to get this dog's tail done, and start thinking, what else is going on with this dog's body when I'm getting the tail done? Because I have a couple of dogs that I will do the tail with them sitting, and then only do the part that needs to be done while they're standing, like just that little tiny bit, but get most of it done with them sitting, because they can handle that. So if they can handle it when they're sitting, it really wasn't about the tail, was it? Interesting, isn't it? Right? Okay, yeah, because if they'll handle it in a different position, that tells me that perhaps there's a position issue. Or it could be the classic, golden retriever who's really nervous about being up high on a table. And I say golden retrievers because I've just known so many that once they got on a table, they're trying to grip their toes to get a good grip, and what they're ending up doing is skating on top of their toenails, and they get more and more nervous, and if you're trying to do something on their tail, they're like, oh my God, I'm gonna fall. Again, we talk about calming everybody down and not letting them get to that point, but if they get to that point, calm them down again. So the tail was what we were working on, but maybe the dog is worried about falling off the table, or worried about losing their balance because they're standing on their toes instead of the pads of their feet. Maybe the dog is having an issue with their balance or with their hips, or there's something stuck in their tail. That happens. I think we've all seen, something deep in those tangles. Or in other cases, the tail is actually kind of matted to the back of the leg. It's sad, but we see it. So back away from our tunnel vision. So anytime you start thinking, oh, this dog has a problem with his nails. All right. And this is such a common problem. And it's one of the things that I tell trainers about too. I think we're thinking about, it's really hard to get a nail trim done on this dog. But what other things does that dog need to do for nail trimming? Because in my experience, there's a lot going on with nail trimming. So, for instance, one of my guys has big, big dew claws on his back legs. Not something you usually see in a border collie, but he does. And these are not just loose little wiggly dew claws. Like he's got some, they're really attached. I think I could actually, I think he can flex them. Like they're really attached. If I casually pick up his back foot, as if he doesn't have dew claws, sometimes I end up actually kind of pressing his toe funny. Like I have to really be careful about the way I pick up his back feet to do nails, because I have to space my fingers out so that dew claw is not being pressed up against his leg. There are little things like that that we aren't necessarily thinking about if we're just laser focused or have tunnel vision that this is the issue that we have. Doesn't like having his back nails done. But that's not true if I grip his leg in a way that is more comfortable. Many, many dogs are uncomfortable with the way that we hold them for nail trimming. Because if they're calm and they're being comfortable, they often do not respond at all when the nail actually gets trimmed. Time and time again. So be thinking about all the other things that go into it. Now, circling back to the dog I was telling you about in the previous part, that little puppy, when you think about getting around eyes on a dog who's very, very small, with an owner, so an owner skill set, which is different than groomer hands, right? We move our hands over dogs like experts. Our owners do not. Vets and vet techs and trainers and doggy daycares and things like that, like with different experience levels, but we don't usually touch dogs the same way that owners do. My suspicion is that not only was she holding on, but here's a puppy who is teething, has an uncomfortable mouth. Like right now at this point, those canine teeth are super sharp, about halfway in, and somebody grabs her mouth, holds it tight, probably presses her gums a little bit, or maybe even presses in such a way that new needly tooth is poking into the gums on the lower part. There can be a mouth issue going on with dogs that have issues with their eyes. Older dogs, that's a big one for the older dogs too. A lot of them have mouth issues, and when we pull up the ear and try to work around an ear, all of that skin is kind of attached to the muscles of their jaw. You think about like any sort of touching against something that is sore, it doesn't have to be I'm not good for my ears or I'm not good for my eyes. It could be there's something uncomfortable going on with the process to get to the eyes or the process to get to the ears. So when we back away from our tunnel vision, and start thinking about what do we have to do to get this done, and what other things can we try to decide if there was a problem with the way we were holding, or if there's a physical problem someplace, or if there's a different way of doing it that makes this dog comfortable. Another example, because I'm full of examples today. Another example is for many dogs, they prefer clipping or grinding for their nails. They have a preference. My dogs really like the grinder. They don't mind the nail clipper, but they are definitely more relaxed with the grinder. They're well behaved for both, but I think I need to coach them a little bit more when it's a nail trimmer, when it's the clipper versus the grinder. And I've known plenty of dogs that the grinder was not their choice, but they like the nail clipping, and maybe a little bit of file just to even out some of those little edges. As a house call groomer, I often have elderly customers, elderly owners who have dogs that they just asking somebody to bring their dog to the groomer for them is just another favor that they feel like they need to ask for. So I'm at their homes and I'm really worried about them getting scratched. Any sort of a sharp nail on a 90-year-old's human skin is a risk. So I'm always like filing or grinding. Dogs have a preference. And if we can find a different way to do it, then we can get things done and build on whatever they need to know. But if we have tunnel vision and we just start thinking like, oh, he's not good for nails, or he hates it when I brush under his armpit, you know what? Maybe he doesn't. Maybe we need to look at the way that we have to hold the leg to get into that armpit. Maybe if we teach him to lay down on his side, he doesn't mind if we brush his armpit. So be thinking about the whole process. And the way that this ties in with our trip into Crazyland from the last part, right? That trip into Crazyland is if we wanted dogs to be aggressive for grooming or for vet visits, right? If we wanted them to struggle and wiggle against us, we would just keep pushing when they aren't comfortable, right? That tunnel vision turns into, oh my God, this is the problem. We need to thoroughly understand the problem. We need to know exactly what the problem is for this individual dog and help them be calm for it, set the mood, help them chill out, let go of the idea that it has to get done right now or that you have to express your displeasure with this dog, because that's not the way that we help them calm down. So helping them calm down, helping them be good, finding out exactly where their issue lies, seeing if there's another way of doing it, another workaround, then we can have better success. I am going to start an online course for you guys. I'm going to start it in March. I think I'm going to go for beginning of March. Details will be coming out, but this is going to be an online course, lots of work, and we're going to have a lot of fun. I think for my first round of putting it out, I think I'm only going to accept 10 students because I'm just not sure how much time it's going to take for me. But be looking for details. Of course, you can ask about it if you have anything in particular you'd like to know, but I will be putting out details and starting an online course for you guys in March. The weekly action step this week is to look at a behavior issue and really step back and think about if this dog has been accidentally taught this response. If you'd like more information, you can find me at Chrissy@happycritters.net, happycrittersdogtraining.com, or you can join the Facebook group, Creating Great Grooming Dogs podcast, or the Facebook page, Creating Great Grooming Dogs. I really look forward to hearing from you. If you're ready to go beyond the podcast, and I hope you do, I've made it really easy for you. If you go to creatinggreatgroomingdogs.com and click on your next step, you'll see all of the options. There's the Scholar Lounge community, there's the Modern Grooming Professional certification, there's Master Canine Stylist and Professional Canine Stylist diploma testings, there's the Behavior Lab for coaching and private one-on-one sessions with me, and of course, the Master Groomer Behavior Specialist program. So go to creatinggreatgroomingdogs.com and click on your next step.